Hello and welcome. My name is Marvin Mendez, and I am the current president of ACI Student Chapter at the University of Houston Downtown. Our organization was established in 2014, with one of our biggest accomplishments coming in at top 10 in the fall 2019 FRP Composite Competition. We are greatly sponsored by ACI Houston Chapter, and of course by our local companies around the Houston area, be it by providing funds to purchase material or by donating aggregate or cementitious material. Now I want to introduce the team that will discuss carbon dioxide, recycled concrete, carbon neutrality, and how all this tie into the construction aspect of how concrete can positively impact the world. Natalie Sapon, Tomas Gonzalez, Nicholas Reina, Jayon Johnson, and Kevin Barralas.
Just a little background on the environmental impact on concrete. So, as of today, the production of concrete is responsible for 5.6% of global CO2 emissions, as well as it being a major contributor to climate change. If the cement industry were its own country, it would be the world's third largest emitter. As we know already, cement is a constituent to concrete. With it being a major ingredient to concrete, it results to 60 to 70% of its manufacturing emissions, which comes from the breakdown of limestone into CO2, and that CO2 is then released into the atmosphere. Another point of emphasis I want to talk about is, are there any possible solutions to this environmental issue? Well, yes, which would be to recycle carbon dioxide back into the concrete. Instead of carbon dioxide to be released into the atmosphere after concrete production, emissioned CO2 can be recycled back into our produced concrete.
A large percentage of buildings use poured cement in order to construct sites. Going to recycling concrete, roughly about 35% of total solid waste is made from construction and demolition. In the process of recycling, you start with demolition through the selected demolition screening and or air separation, which includes the removal of embattled items to prevent contamination by other materials that can be troublesome, such as soil, chlorides, glass, paper, plaster, wood, and roofing material. Following the recycling of aggregate, which can be distributed into either aggregate base or mixed into new Portland cement, and eventually can be reused into concrete structure once again. Although the strength of reusing recycled aggregate is roughly about 10 to 15% less than virgin aggregate, with higher quantity of cement and or usage of admixture to reduce the water requirement, it could be reliable.
Now we will transition into how concrete can help the environment, such as commercial and residential communities. Being that recycled concrete creates a versatility of an adaptation for rural and suburban entities, such as driveways, parking lots, classrooms, landscaping, and home building. It gives people many options to choose from as far as when dealing with concrete, such as commercial communities benefits. Their benefits come in with, I'll give an example of a classroom. While decor is important, having recycled concrete walls demonstrates an efficient electricity cost reduction. For instance, concrete has a high thermal mass with properties similar to brick and stone. It's possible to absorb heat from the atmosphere in warm weather and release it during the cold weather. Another example could be driveways and parking lots. The method of implementation is much safer for the surrounding environment. For example, they no longer have to focus on using fresh materials. Also, it cuts down on costs due to the fact that you don't have to worry about the trucks driving to landfills and dropping off the extra crushed concrete, or even being safer as far as the materials being used. You're now using crushed concrete as to fresh concrete, which has many factors that are non-beneficial. Residential communities benefits can come from, I'll say, home building, as far as new builds on down to remodeling. This, for instance, just as driveways and parking lots, it reduces construction costs, as well as you won't have to use as much materials, which is great because that can drive up the cost of a home. Also, too, it can add as far as landscaping. Landscaping has been known to add value to home by up to 13%. depending on the style or type of landscaping that you choose. So if you choose to add landscape borders, retaining walls such as a replica bookleaf, dry stone wall, sidewalks, patios, you can even use mulch. For instance, using mulch, you won't have to worry about weeds coming up. When dealing with mulch with recycled concrete in it, it'll prevent different weeds from growing through the soil that most mulch won't be able to prevent due to the simple fact of the weight of the concrete and then the things in concrete. Last but not least, you can have garden steps, which I have a picture that shows that, and garden steps, that's your own little design, your own little creativity to add to your home, while also using crushed concrete, which you're not enabling the environment, you're actually saving it because you're not putting anything bad out into the atmosphere. And lastly, when using recycled concrete, we thought of a suggestion. We could talk about using recycled concrete, but what type of recycled concrete would be best? And just for a suggestion, we chose green concrete, which is a form of eco-friendly concrete that requires less amount of energy for production due to less carbon dioxide being used.
Thank you for listening to our presentation. Have a nice day.